The moment my son-in-law snapped his fingers and told security, "Get this old man out of here," something inside me finally broke, quietly, cleanly, the way a bone snaps after years of pressure. He thought he was humiliating a harmless aging father-in-law. He had no idea he had just pulled the trigger on his own downfall. I'm Keith, and this is the story of how a man like me, 60 years old, widowed, dismissed, underestimated, stood back up, and burned an entire lie to the ground. If you're hearing this, do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you were listening from. I'm curious to know how far my story of justice has traveled, how far the echo of that one moment has reached. Because what happened next wasn't anger. It wasn't vengeance. It was the kind of reckoning a man earns when he's pushed too far, for too long, and finally decides he's done being small. I stepped into Briarwood Wealth Partners at exactly 10:07 a.m. Rain dripping from my coat, the kind of cold Pennsylvania rain that seeps into your bones. I wasn't there to make trouble. I wasn't there to embarrass anyone. I just wanted to drop off a small gift for my daughter's family, winter gloves, for the kids, nothing more. But the second Evan Brooks, my son-in-law, saw me standing in the marble lobby, his eyebrows shot up like I'd brought dirt into his kingdom. "Keith." He laughed loud enough for 2 receptionists and a handful of suited analysts to turn. "What are you doing here? This isn't a coffee shop." Before I could answer, he waved over security with a snap of his fingers. "Guys, can you help? My father-in-law gets confused sometimes." Confused? The word hit my chest like a shove. 2 security guards approached, stiff and apologetic, but Evan leaned in, with that smile, thin, polished, and poisonous. "Keith, you can't just show up here. This is a professional office. We don't let retirees wander the building." I felt every eye in that lobby land on me, and in that moment, I understood something I should have seen years earlier. My son-in-law didn't just dislike me. He needed me to be beneath him. Small, harmless, easy to dismiss. I raised my hand slightly to show I wasn't resisting. "It's fine," I said quietly. "I'll leave." Evan turned away before I finished the sentence, already bragging to a co-worker about a lunchtime meeting with a 7-figure client. And that was the end of it. At least, that's what Evan thought. My name is Keith Turner. I'm 60, widowed, and I live in a small apartment overlooking the Susquehanna River. It's nothing fancy, 2 rooms, old carpet, a balcony that creaks in the wind, but it's enough. After my wife Clara passed 5 years ago, life got very quiet. Too quiet sometimes. Lauren, my daughter, lives 30 minutes away, in Harrisburg, with Evan and their 2 kids, Lily 11 and Carter 8. I try to see them every week, as long as Evan approves the schedule. His words, not mine. That afternoon, after leaving his office, I drove to their house anyway. I wanted to check on my grandchildren. Something had felt off lately. Lauren's short texts, her tired voice, the way she avoided talking about finances. When I pulled into their driveway, I saw Lily run to the window. She waved excitedly, breath fogging up the glass. I waved back. Then my smile faltered. She was wearing the same thin denim jacket I'd seen her in 2 months ago, in late October, in Pennsylvania. Carter opened the door before I reached it, shivering in a t-shirt. "Mom said the heater's acting weird," he said. I rubbed his shoulders. "Where's your coat, buddy?" "It's too small now," he shrugged. "Dad said we'll buy new ones when he gets his bonus." Inside, Lauren stood by the kitchen sink, staring out the window, like she was watching a storm only she could see. Her eyes had the exhausted, brittle look of someone constantly holding their breath. "Dad," she said, turning quickly, forcing a smile. "Sorry, today's just busy." I hugged her. She felt lighter than she used to. "You okay?" I asked quietly. "Of course," she said, too fast. "Evan's just stressed at work." You know how it is. I did know, but not in the way she meant. And right on cue, Evan walked in, removing wireless earbuds with a sigh, meant to signal he was a very important man, with very important problems. Well, he said, glancing at my boots, my jacket didn't expect a pop-in visit. His tone wasn't openly hostile. It was worse, polite enough that no one could call it rude, sharp enough that I felt the sting anyway. Kids were excited to see you, he added, already walking past me. At dinner, he talked about markets, bonuses, deals, all, while Lauren sat silent, cutting food into tiny pieces she never ate. When I finally tried to ask Carter about school, Evan spoke over him, to brag about his new high-end espresso machine. He was careful, always careful not to attack me directly. No insults, no yelling, just tiny cuts. 1,000 of them. When dinner ended, I told them I'd head home early. Lauren hugged me longer than usual. "Drive safe," she whispered, and there was something in her voice, something thin as glass, almost begging. Outside, the air felt colder, heavier. 30 minutes later, I sat alone in my riverfront apartment. I made tea, sat at my old wooden desk, and opened my laptop. I didn't know what I expected to see. But it wasn't this $24,603,118.42. I stared at the number for a long time. The result of selling my manufacturing company years earlier. Money I had saved, invested, and never flaunted. Money no one, not even Lauren, knew existed. Maybe that was my mistake. Or maybe it was my advantage. Because as I sat there replaying Evan's laugh, his dismissive wave, the thin jacket on Lily's shoulders, I felt something shift in me. Quiet, slow, final. I closed the laptop gently. And for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next few days I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong in Lauren's house. Not just tension, not just the usual strain of two tired parents with two growing kids. It felt heavier than that, like a quiet pressure building behind dry drywall, ready to split open if someone pushed even a little too hard. So I went back the following Saturday, unannounced. Not to provoke Evan. God knows I wasn't ready for another public circus, but to see the kids, to read the air in that house, with the eyes of someone who'd lived long enough to recognize the small signs people try to hide. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw it immediately. A brand new Tesla Model X, white with black wheels, the kind you only buy when you want people to know you bought it. The glossy finish still had the dealership tag on the plate frame. 2 steps later, I saw something else. The siding near the garage had a crack that had gone untouched for months, and the grass in the front yard was ankle-high. Evan's priorities were loud. He just assumed no one was listening. Lauren opened the door before I knocked. Her smile wasn't real. It flickered like a candle in wind. "Dad, hey," she said softly. "You didn't say you were coming. I wanted to see you." "And the kids," I answered, watching her eyes. They were tired again. Not the tired of a long week. This was the tired of someone who hasn't breathed fully in months. Inside, the house felt quiet. Too quiet for a home with 2 kids. Carter sat at the dining table, coloring without speaking. Lily was curled on the couch with a book, but she didn't lift her head when I walked in, just mumbled a soft, "Hi, Grandpa. Everything okay?" I asked Lauren in a low voice. "Oh, they're just adjusting. School's been busy." She didn't look at me when she said it. Evan came downstairs a moment later, dressed like he was about to film an ad for investment services, pressed shirt, watch that probably cost more than my first truck. "You again," he said with a half smile. "Hope you called first this time." "I didn't," I said. He gave a small laugh, the kind that hides an insult inside a polite tone. "Well, we'd love to chat, but we've got a lot going on today. New financial planning software at work. Big learning curve. You probably wouldn't get it." He clapped my shoulder and walked past like he owned the oxygen in the house. Lauren didn't defend him. She just folded her arms across her chest and looked away. While Evan was upstairs preparing for Monday meetings, I helped Lauren fix a loose hinge on the kids' bathroom door. That's when I saw Lily's sneakers sitting on the floor, the soles peeling, the fabric separating at the sides. "These still fit her?" I asked gently. Lauren hesitated. "They will, for a little while. They look like they are falling apart. She has a birthday coming up," Lauren said quickly. Too quickly. "We'll get her something then." Something twisted inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a deep, familiar ache. The kind a father feels when he realizes his child is living smaller than she deserves. I stepped into Lily's room to put her laundry away. The first thing I noticed was the broken drawer on her dresser taped shut, as if it were a temporary fix, but the tape was yellowed and curling. Months old. I bent down to look at it more closely. Inside, I saw folded shirts, one with a small rip near the seam, that had been hand-stitched by someone who learned to sew under pressure. The stitches weren't Lauren's style. They were rushed, the way a child might patch their own shirt, so nobody noticed. I swallowed hard. Minutes later, Evan's voice cut through the hall. "Lauren, did you order those supplements again? They're $60 a bottle. I already told you, no wasteful spending." Lauren's shoulders pinched inward. She didn't answer. He stomped past me without acknowledging I existed. But what struck me more wasn't his words. It was the way Lauren instantly moved toward the kitchen drawer, searching for coupons like a reflex. A trained response. That's the thing about control. It doesn't always show up as shouting. Sometimes it's quiet, efficient, practiced. Sunday morning, I drove the kids to school because Lauren had to leave early for a work meeting. After dropping them off, I stopped by the front office to sign a volunteer form. That's when a young woman approached me. She had warm eyes, a gentle face, and a stack of books tucked under her arm. "Mr. Turner?" she asked. "Yes, I'm Amelia Harper, Lily's teacher." She hesitated in that careful, professional way educators do when they're about to say something they're not sure they're allowed to. "I just wanted to mention, Lily mentioned you might visit soon. She seems very fond of you." I smiled. "She's a good kid." Amelia lowered her voice. "I don't mean to intrude, but I noticed her shoes are worn. She's been avoiding recess on cold days because her toes get wet." A tightness gripped my chest. "She hasn't said anything to her parents?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Amelia shook her head. "Kids don't always tell their parents when they are trying to protect them." Protect them. My granddaughter was protecting her mother from something she didn't have words for. I thanked her, walked out, and sat in my truck for a long time. The rain started again, tapping the windshield like a reminder. Things were breaking apart in that house quietly, painfully, and Evan was too busy polishing his image to notice any of it. I wasn't going to let it continue. That evening, I stopped by Lauren's again to return a casserole dish. Evan wasn't home yet, so I asked Carter to help carry some things to the garage. He pointed to a corner. "Dad said not to touch that box." A sleek, glossy shopping bag sat inside, half hidden behind a toolbox. The logo was from a luxury hotel in downtown Philadelphia, a place I recognized. I knelt down, pulling out a small folded receipt. "One night stay, Fairmont Gold Floor room service for two. Total $629.14. My hands went cold. 2 guests. 1 night. Philadelphia. During the same week, Lauren had told me Evan was on a late work call. The first crack in the dam had just split wide open. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of rage. Anger was too easy, too young for a mom my age. What kept me awake was something far sharper: clarity. There comes a moment in every parent's life when they see the truth they've been trained not to see. For me, it was that receipt from the Fairmont in Philadelphia, tucked behind a toolbox, like a quiet confession. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to confront Evan. Not yet. Men like him don't break when you shout at them. They break when you turn the lights on and force them to look at their own shadows. So I drove into town, the cold October air biting through my jacket, and parked outside a small brick office wedged between a pawn shop and an old barber with a flickering neon sign. The words on the frosted glass read, "Delaney Private Investigations." Inside, the place smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. A single desk lamp glowed in the far corner, lighting up a man with gray hair, a tired jawline, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. He stood when I entered. "You must be Turner," he said. "Frank Delaney." His handshake was firm, but not the kind men use to prove something. It felt like respect, or maybe recognition. We sat. He poured us both coffee. He warned me was terrible. He wasn't wrong. So he said, opening a battered notebook, "You said this was about family." I nodded. "My son-in-law, Evan Brooks. Trouble, in more ways than I can count." Frank leaned back. "Let's start with the basics." I told him everything: Evan's arrogance, the new Tesla, the shrinking coats, the hotel receipt, Lauren's exhaustion, the way she tugged at her wedding band, like it was getting tighter with every passing week. Frank listened without interrupting, tapping a pen against his notebook, the way cops do when they are piecing together a puzzle. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. "Guy sounds like the kind of man who smiles for photos, but hides knives in his pockets," he said. "That's one way to put it. So what do you want from me, Mr. Turner?" "Proof of the affair. Proof of everything," I said quietly. "I want to know what he's doing. With who. Where he's spending money. What he's hiding from my daughter." Frank didn't blink. He studied me, really studied me, as if he was trying to decide what kind of man I was. "Let me guess," he said finally. "You haven't told your daughter you're doing this?" "No. You planning on confronting him yourself when the time is right?" Frank tapped his pen one more time, then closed the notebook. "There was a time," he said, "when I trusted a man I shouldn't have. Captain at my precinct. Good face, rotten core. He dragged me into a financial mess I didn't know about. I lost my badge, my pension, and my marriage in the same year." He looked straight at me. "When a man like Evan starts lying, he doesn't stop. He escalates. You were right to come here. Something settled between us. An understanding only men who've survived betrayal recognize." "What would it cost?" I asked. $2,000 to start," he said. "Balance on completion." I slid an envelope across the desk. He didn't count it, just nodded. "What do you need from me?" Frank asked. His schedule, his routines, the address of his office, the places he likes to hold meetings. I handed him a folded sheet of paper I'd written out the night before, every detail I'd memorized from watching Evan over the years. 2 weeks, Frank said, standing. "I'll track his movements, his spending, his behavior. I'll cross-check anything financial he tries to hide. And if there's someone else in the picture—" "There is," I said quietly. He nodded once. "I'll find her." I stood to leave, but he stopped me with a question. "What made you finally decide to look?" I thought of Lily's ripped sneakers, Carter's thin t-shirt, Lauren's voice cracking when she said, "I'm fine, Dad." "A man can endure being insulted," I said. "Humiliated even. I'm too old to care what people like Evan think of me." "Then what?" "He hurt my daughter," I answered. "And he made my grandkids feel small." For the first time, Frank gave a genuine smile. "You're the kind of client I don't mind working over him for." The next 2 weeks dragged like wet winter days. Frank sent short text updates every evening, always coded, never detailed. Subject left office 7:14 p.m. Dinner with unknown female. Pattern forming. More soon. I didn't push. I'd spent a lifetime building machines, companies, and relationships. I knew that truth arrives the same way. Steel cools slowly, deliberately, painfully. On the 14th night at 9:30 p.m., my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a text. It was a photo. Then another. Then another. Evan. And a woman. Sienna, though I didn't know her name yet. Hands where they shouldn't be. Smiles that didn't belong to married people. Hotel rooms, bars, a rooftop lounge overlooking Philadelphia's skyline. But the last message wasn't a photo. It was a sentence that made the small hairs on my neck rise. You need to see this right away. It's not just an affair. Frank asked me to meet him at a small diner off Route 322, the kind of place where the coffee is always burnt and the booths have duct tape on the seams. It was quiet inside, too early for lunch, too late for breakfast. A perfect place for bad news. He was already there, sitting in the back booth, with a thick folder in front of him. His expression wasn't the tired one I'd seen before. It was heavier, more deliberate. Like he'd been deciding how to say something he wished he didn't have to deliver. You ready? He asked as I sat down. No, I said, show me anyway. He opened the folder and slid the first set of photos toward me. Evan. And a young woman. Different restaurants, different nights, different cities. Her hair dark curled at the ends, her smile polished but tired. Her name typed neatly on a printed profile. Sienna Roth, 26, Junior Investment Analyst, Briarwood Wealth Partners. I studied the photos carefully. One of them showed Evan brushing her hair behind her ear. Another captured their hands intertwined on a hotel balcony. This looks like it's been going on a while, I said quietly. 6 months at least, Frank confirmed. I didn't react. There was nothing left in me that could be surprised by Evan's infidelity. Not after Lily's jack at the hotel receipt. The way he controlled Lauren like she was a houseplant. He needed to keep trimmed. But then, Frank opened the second half of the file. And the real damage began. Ready for the part you're not expecting, he asked. Do it. He slid over a stack of printed financial statements, some highlighted, some with handwritten notes. These, Frank said, tapping the first page, are loan applications made in your daughter's name. Personal loans, high interest, short term. My jaw tightened. She didn't apply for any of these, I said flatly. No, she didn't. He pointed at a signature line. This isn't Lauren's handwriting. It looks like Evan forged it. My stomach dropped. But Frank wasn't finished. Total debt under her name that she doesn't know about, 384,700. He let that number sit there between us. I took a slow breath. He used her credit. Worse, Frank said. He used her identity. My eyes lifted. That's fraud, Keith. Federal fraud. He pulled out another sheet. A credit card. Lauren had never activated, but someone had. Statements filled with luxury hotels, dinners, high-end electronics. And none of it matched Lauren's spending habits, not even close. Frank continued, he's juggling debt. Robbing one lender to pay another. If even one payment defaults, collectors will come after Lauren, not him. I closed my eyes for a moment. I pictured my daughter waking up on a Saturday morning, making pancakes for her kids, completely unaware she was drowning in someone else's ocean. I can pull more records, Frank said, but what I've found so far is enough to get law enforcement involved. We can file a report right now. Fraud, identity theft, marital financial concealment, the works. He waited. He expected me to jump. Most people would. But I didn't. Not yet, I said quietly. Frank frowned. Keith, this isn't the time to be patient. If he defaults, I know. Then why wait? Because Lauren doesn't need an explosion, I said. Not yet. She needs the truth delivered in a way she can stand on her own feet afterward. He leaned back, studying me, like I was a puzzle he hadn't solved. You're calm, he said. Most men would be throwing punches. I let out a long exhale. When Clara, my wife, was sick, I learned something important. People break fastest when you rush them. I'm not going to break my daughter trying to save her. Frank nodded slowly, respecting the answer, even if he didn't agree with it. He closed the folder, slid it across the table, and spoke again, this time softer. There's something I need to ask you. I looked up. You seem like a man who planned for this more than you admit. A man who's not just reacting, he's preparing. His eyes narrowed slightly. What aren't you telling your family? The question hung there like a hook in the air. I didn't answer immediately. I turned toward the window, the gray sky reflecting off the puddles outside the highway, humming steadily in the distance. Finally I spoke. I'm not poor, I said. Not even close. Frank's eyebrow lifted. I continued, voice low, steady. They think I'm living off a pension in that little riverfront apartment. I paused. I've got $24.6 million in my account. Frank stared at me for a long second, then let out a short, quiet whistle. Well, he said, leaning back, that changes everything. And he was right. It changed absolutely everything. The night after meeting Frank, I sat alone at my desk with only the river wind rattling the balcony door for company. $24 million doesn't make a man young again, but it does give him choices, quiet, strategic choices. And I'd spent my whole life understanding one truth. The best revenge is never loud. It's calculated, cold, and timed down to the second. So I opened my laptop and created a new email address, a new identity. A man nobody in my family knew. Kenneth Lowell. Age 61. Retired owner of Lowell Precision Tools. Recent sale, $48 million, ready to invest. It felt strange typing it out, knowing the real version wasn't far from the truth. I had built my company with my own hands. I had earned every dollar honestly, painfully, with sweat and metal filings clinging to my clothes. Evan had no idea whose shadow he'd been mocking all these years. I typed out the first email, to Mason Caldwell, founding partner, Briarwood Wealth Partners. I'm seeking discreet high-level management for a $14 million transfer. I prefer confidentiality and direct partnership oversight. Kenneth Lowell. No mention of Evan. Not a hint of who I truly was. Just bait on a hook. By morning, the reply was waiting in my inbox. Mr. Lowell, we would be honored to discuss your transfer. Please come in for a private consultation. Mason Caldwell. Perfect. 2 days later, I walked into Briarwood Wealth Partners again, but this time with purpose. This time on my terms. I wore the same old canvas jacket. Evan hated the same boots he mocked. Nothing about me said millionaire. Nothing about me said threat. And that's exactly why the next moments played out the way they did. The lobby was busy, advisors walking fast, screens glowing, clients pacing while talking into headsets. And there near the reception desk stood Evan Brooks. He was laughing with 2 younger analysts, showing them something on his phone. Probably his new car, or maybe a watch he wanted other people to admire. I tried to walk past him unnoticed. No such luck. He glanced up, and his smirk tightened like a fist. Oh God, he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Keith, are you lost again? The analysts chuckled. I kept walking. But Evan stepped into my path. Security, he called loudly. You guys want to check this gentleman? We've had issues with people wandering in. He looked at me, eyes glinting. You really need to stop showing up places you don't belong. For a moment, the old anger flickered, but I smothered it. Anger was his tool, not mine. A guard approached politely. "Sir, can we help you?" Before I answered, a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit appeared from the hallway. Silver hair, confident stride, eyes that read people like spreadsheets. "Mason Caldwell." "Is there a problem here?" Mason asked. Evan jumped in. "Just handling it." "Mason, my father-in-law keeps—" But Mason wasn't looking at him. He was looking at me. "Mr. Lowell?" he asked, offering his hand. "You're right on time. Thank you for coming." The silence in that lobby. God, I can still feel it. Two analysts froze. A receptionist stopped mid-sentence. Even Evan's smirk vanished so fast it was almost comical. I shook Mason's hand calmly. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell," I said. "I hope I didn't cause any confusion." "None at all," he replied, turning to Evan. "Why is your father-in-law being stopped by security?" Evan's eyes darted. He said his name was what, Lowell? He's lying." Mason's face hardened. "He's one of our incoming high-value clients. $14 million. You might want to stand down, Evan." Evan swallowed hard. I looked at the guards. "Everything's fine, gentlemen." "Thank you." Mason gestured toward the hallway. "Mr. Lowell, let's speak in my office." As we walked away, I could feel Evan's confusion burning into my back. He wasn't scared yet, but he was close. Inside Mason's glass-walled office, the city hummed below us. He poured coffee, professional, but respectful as equals, not like the way Evan treated me. He reviewed my fabricated background with interest. "You've managed your assets well over the years," he noted. "I prefer quiet growth," I said. "Stability. Reliability." He nodded. "We can handle that. And just to confirm, this transfer is strictly confidential." "Absolutely," I said. "No staff, no advisors, only you." Mason's eyebrows rose subtly. He understood the value of secrecy and the value of a client who demands it. Then something shifted in his expression, just barely, but enough for me to see it. He had started connecting dots. The rude son-in-law, the wealthy new client, the sudden tension in the lobby, the unmistakable embarrassment Evan had walked into. Mason leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Lowell, is there something I should know about one of my employees?" I didn't answer right away. I let the question hang there long enough for his mind to search for the truth. Then I looked him in the eye, steady, measured. "Maybe," I said. "But not yet." Mason's jaw tightened in a way only seasoned businessmen do when they sense a storm coming. He closed the folder and stood. "Let's continue this conversation in private," he said quietly. "Just you and me." He opened the door for me, but his last glance drifted back toward the open floor, toward Evan. Suspicion. Growing, sharpening. Just the way I needed it to. I arrived at Briarwood Wealth Partners on a Tuesday morning, the kind of sharp, cold morning that feels like the world is holding its breath. The sun hit the glass tower just right, turning it into a mirror of gold. A fitting stage for what was about to happen. I parked my old Ford Ranger right up front in plain view. Let Evan see it. Let everyone see it. Inside the lobby, people moved fast, crisp suits, flashing past me, shoes tapping against marble. I didn't dress differently for the occasion. Same boots, same worn jacket, same man they thought they could underestimate. Reception didn't greet me as a nuisance this time. They stood as I approached. "Good morning, Mr. Lowell," the young woman said. "Mr. Caldwell is expecting you." I nodded, feeling eyes on me from every direction. Nothing draws attention in a financial firm like the scent of a multi-million-dollar transfer. She escorted me up to the 18th floor. And that's where I saw him. Evan, standing by the conference table laughing with 3 co-workers, right until he saw me step out of the elevator. His smile died instantly. Before he could speak, Mason Caldwell came out of his office and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Lowell," he said loudly, clearly, making sure the entire floor heard it. "Thank you for coming. We're all set for the final authorization." A ripple went through the office. People peeked over monitors. Some pretended to stretch their necks, but were really watching. After all, it wasn't every day $14 million walked around in boots. Mason gestured toward the glass conference room walls, transparent, visible to everyone on the floor. "Perfect." We sat at the center table, documents neatly arranged. Mason spoke with the tone of a man proud to be closing a major deal. "If you're comfortable, we'll proceed with validating the transfer of the $14 million into your new managed portfolio." He slid a pen toward me. I could feel Evan behind me, hovering like a nervous shadow. He wanted to say something. He wanted to intervene. But he didn't dare interrupt a meeting with a client who could practically fund a quarter of Briarwood's bonus pool. I signed the first document, then the second. Then Mason spoke louder on purpose. "And on behalf of Briarwood Wealth Partners, I'd like to officially welcome Mr. Kenneth Lowell as one of our highest value clients this quarter." A hush fell over the office floor. Evan's face twisted confusion, circling into panic. "Wait, what?" he stammered. No, this doesn't make sense." He stepped forward. "Keith, what the hell are you doing? Why are you pretending to be someone else? You don't have $14 million. You live in a box apartment with peeling paint." I raised a hand, stopping him cold. "Before we continue," I said to Mason, "there is something I should clarify." Mason nodded, studying me with growing curiosity. I stood. Every eye in the room locked on me. "My name isn't Kenneth Lowell," I said. "Not in full." I turned slightly, letting my gaze land on Evan. "My name is Keith Turner." A stunned silence swept the office. Evan's jaw dropped. His coworkers froze. One of the junior analysts looked like he'd forgotten how to blink. "No," Evan whispered, shaking his head. This is insane. You're broke. You drive a truck with rust on it. You live in a rental." I stepped closer, my voice calm, steady, sharp enough to cut him cleanly. "I sold Turner & Sons lumber 5 years ago. A cash sale." I let it sink in. $24.8 million, Evan. He staggered back, like the truth had hit him square in the chest. No. You told Lauren." "I told nobody," I said quietly. "Because I wanted to see who people became when they thought I had nothing." A murmur rolled across the office floor. Evan looked around desperately, as though someone would step in and save him. No one did. Mason's voice came next, low and dangerously level. "Evan," he said, "why didn't you inform the firm that your father-in-law had this level of wealth? You've been here for years." Evan swallowed hard. I didn't know." "How would I know? He never said." "That's not what I'm asking," Mason replied. "I'm asking why you treated a man like this in front of clients, in front of staff. Why you had security approach him. Why you behaved unprofessionally with someone you should have regarded as a potential investor." Mason's gaze sharpened. "And more importantly, why you handled client accounts that now warrant review." Evan blanched. He tried to speak, failed, then tried again. "Mason, please. He's lying. He's doing this to ruin me enough." Mason raised a hand. "You're not speaking to your wife right now. You're speaking to a founding partner." The room went dead silent. A moment later, 2 security officers appeared at the glass door, summoned quietly by Mason's assistant. Mason folded his arms, eyes cold. "Evan Brooks, you are suspended, effective immediately, pending a full audit of your accounts." He stepped closer, a voice dropping to a razor's edge. "And depending on what I find, this may go to the Securities and Exchange Commission." Evan's face collapsed. Not the collapse of a man in guilt, but the collapse of a man who just realized the ground beneath him had vanished. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "You can't do this. I'm one of your top advisors." "You were," Mason corrected. He nodded to security. "Escort him out." The guard stepped forward. And that's when Evan finally looked at me, not with arrogance, not with condescension, not with that smug superiority he always wore, but with fear, real fear. The truth had finally caught up to him. Lauren's house used to feel warm like Clara's old kitchen, back when life was simpler. But that afternoon when I pulled into the driveway, a coldness hung over the place. The kind of cold that doesn't come from weather. The kind that lives in walls, in marriages, in people. Lauren opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes were tired in a way no 38-year-old's eyes should ever be. "Dad, why are you here? You look shaken." "I need to talk to you," I said. "And you're not going to like it." She hesitated but stepped aside. The living room was quiet, too quiet. The kids were still at school. "Okay," she whispered. "What's going on?" I sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on my knees, hands clasped. I had spent hours preparing for this moment, but still didn't know how to begin. So I started with the truth, the raw truth. "Lauren, Evan's been seeing another woman. Her name is Sienna Roth, 26, works at his firm." Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't cry, not right away. Shock builds a wall before the tears come. "No," she said weakly. "No, he's been working late because they're expanding the portfolio division. He told me." I slid Frank's photos across the coffee table. Lauren stared at them. Her hands began to tremble. She whispered, He told me he was at corporate dinners." "He was," I said softly. "Just not with the people he claimed." Her shoulders folded inward, like someone pressing down on her from all directions. But I wasn't done. God help me, I wished I was. "There's more," I said. She looked up slowly, eyes already glassy. "Your name," I continued, "is on loans you'd never approved. Hundreds of thousands in debt. Forged signatures, hidden credit cards, cash advances." "No!" Her voice cracked. "Dad, stop. Please stop. Evan wouldn't. He couldn't." "He did." She stared at me, breath shaking, eyes filling until tears broke loose. "He promised me everything was fine," she cried. "He told me we were saving for the kids' summer program. He told me the Tesla was a company perk. Oh my God, what else is he lying about?" I reached out and took her hands. "What he's done is fraud, Lauren. Real federal fraud. If this spirals, the consequences could land on you, not him." Her face crumpled. For a second she looked like she was falling apart in slow motion. "I trusted him," she whispered. "I defended him. I made excuses for him. For years." Her voice lowered to a hoarse whisper. What do I do before I could answer? The sound of an engine growled into the driveway. Not the Tesla Evans backup car, a black Jeep he drove when he wanted to look relatable. Lauren stiffened. And then he walked in without knocking, without calling out, without even noticing the tension in the room. "Lauren, I need to talk." He stopped when he saw me. The shift in his face was immediate. First confusion, then frustration, then something darker. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded. Lauren stood, arms crossed, shoulders shaking. "Evan," she said, voice breaking, "we need to talk about Sienna." His jaw locked. "Who?" he said flatly. "Don't," she snapped. "Don't you dare lie." He shot a glare at me. "You really think he's telling you the truth? This is what he wants, for you to turn against me." Then, pointing straight at my chest, "He's jealous. He's always been jealous. A washed-up old man who hates the fact that I outgrew him." I stayed seated, calm, my voice steady as stone. "No one outgrows honesty, Evan." "Oh, shut up," he barked. "You've been trying to sabotage me for years. I know you hate the life I built. You hate that I succeed where you failed. Lauren's eyes widened. Failed. My father built a company from nothing. Evan scoffed. He told you that. But look at him. Look where he lives. Look what he drives. A successful man doesn't. You don't know anything, Lauren said sharply. You don't know who he is. He turned to her. You're seriously going to believe him? He's manipulating you because you're vulnerable right now. I stood slowly. Not to threaten him, not to dominate him, just to face him eye to eye, man to man. Evan, I said quietly, I'm done letting you hurt my daughter. I know about the affair, the debt, the fraud. His face drained of color. Lauren whispered, Tell me the truth, Evan. Please. But he didn't answer her. He only glared at me, breathing hard, shoulders rigid with the indignation he no longer had a right to feel. Lauren's voice hardened. Get out. He blinked. What? Get out of this house, she said. Right now. You can't be serious. This is our home. Not anymore, she whispered. Not after everything you've done. Her voice cracked, but she didn't back down. Get out. Evan stood there shaking, furious, but powerless. Then he grabbed his coat, slammed the door so hard the frames rattled, and peeled down the street. Lauren collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. I sat beside her, pulling her into my shoulder, the way I did when she was little, and scraped her knees on the driveway. He can't hurt you anymore, I said softly. I promise. Her tears soaked into my shirt. She didn't speak. She couldn't. And then my phone buzzed. Frank Delaney. I stepped into the kitchen and answered. Frank. His voice was tense, too tense. Keith. Mason just called me. My stomach tightened. What happened? There's something else in Evan's accounts, Frank said. A lot worse than fraud. Something that could blow this whole thing open. He paused. You need to come right now. Frank's office smelled like printer ink and rain-soaked coats when I got there. Mason Caldwell was already inside, standing stiffly with a folder tucked beneath his arm. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years since our last meeting. Frank shut the door behind me. We're past the guessing stage now, he said. It's real. And it's bad. Mason opened the folder and slid several documents onto the table. Not photos. Not hotel receipts. Not forged signatures. These were worse. These, Mason said, tapping the top sheet. Our investment accounts opened under Lauren Brooks's Social Security number. I felt the room tighten around me. They're tied to trading activity, Mason continued, but none of them were authorized by your daughter. And the signatures? He pointed at an enlarged section. All forged. Frank added, one account alone moved nearly $200,000 in high-risk options trading. Losses totaled over $60,000. Another was used as collateral for margin loans. All in her name. My jaw clenched. Can this be tied back to Evan directly? Mason nodded. We checked the IP logs. Every login came from his work laptop or the home network. Federal. That word echoed in my head before Frank even said it. This isn't just fraud, Keith, Frank said. This falls under securities fraud. Identity misuse in a financial institution. That's federal territory. Mason exhaled slowly. We notified the SEC's regional office this morning. They've opened a preliminary file. It won't stay preliminary for long. I pictured Lauren at home, knees pulled to her chest, trying to stay strong for the kids. She had no idea her husband had placed her legally, financially, and criminally in the path of a storm. Just then a knock at the door. A woman stepped in, short hair, sharp suit presence, firm enough to quiet a room. Mr. Turner, she asked. Yes. I'm Janet Ford, counsel for your daughter. Frank contacted me an hour ago. I shook her hand, steady grip, no hesitation. The kind of lawyer who didn't blink in crises. She laid a stack of documents on the table. "We're filing for an emergency divorce proceeding," she said. "Your daughter will request temporary sole custody exclusive residence rights to the home, and effective today, a protective no-contact order." "Protective order," I repeated. Janet nodded. "Given the fraud, identity theft, and emotional coercion, it's justified. Evan may try to manipulate her or destroy evidence. We're moving fast to keep him away from the kids." Mason cleared his throat. "There's more," he said quietly. "Our internal audit is complete. We've forwarded the findings to law enforcement. The police will be bringing Evan in for questioning today." The room fell silent. I imagined Evan walking out of that office with security at his shoulders, then being picked up again a few days later, this time by the police. And suddenly all his arrogance, all his swagger, all his belittling comments felt like dust in the wind. A man who thought he was untouchable was about to learn what real consequences looked like. Janet gathered her documents. "I'm heading to Lauren now," she said. "We'll file everything within the hour." Before she left the room, she turned to me. "Mr. Turner," she said softer now, "your daughter will need you. This isn't going to end quickly. Evan will try to fight back. He'll blame you. He'll claim this is some scheme to ruin him." She held my gaze. "This is the beginning of a long battle. And you need to be ready." Frank added, "He's lost his job, Keith. He's losing his family. Men like him don't accept accountability. They lash out." Janet nodded once more. "Be prepared for all outcomes." I felt a coldness settle inside me. Not fear, not doubt. Resolve. "I'll be ready," I said quietly. But somewhere deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the first shot. The courthouse in Harrisburg always looked colder than the weather outside. Tall stone walls, long echoing halls. A place where truth doesn't whisper, it lands like a hammer. Lauren walked ahead of me, shoulders squared, hands trembling, only when she thought no one could see. I stayed a few steps behind, not to lead, not to push, just to be the solid presence she could fall back on, if she needed it. Inside the family courtroom, the air felt tight, as if the room itself knew something irreversible was about to happen. Evan sat across the aisle at the respondent's table, wearing a suit he probably borrowed and a confidence he absolutely didn't have. His jaw worked back and forth like he was chewing on excuses. His lawyer, clearly court-appointed, looked exhausted before anything even started. Janet Ford took her place beside Lauren, calm and razor-focused. The judge entered stern calm, not impressed by theatrics. We all stood, then sat. The proceedings began. Janet opened with facts, not drama. Evidence, dates, documents. Each one laid neatly on the table like bricks forming a wall Evan couldn't climb. The affair, the forged signatures, the secret investment accounts, the loans Lauren never knew existed, the SEC investigation already in motion. Evan's lawyer tried to interrupt twice. The judge cut him off twice. When Evan finally spoke, it was the last gasp of a drowning man. "This is all being twisted," he insisted. "Keith's been trying to tear our marriage apart. He hates me. He always has. And he used his money to manipulate Lauren. He orchestrated all this just to break our family." He pointed at me, like a child pointing toward a broken vase. "He's using his wealth to sabotage my life." For the first time that day, the judge looked directly at me. "Mr. Turner, do you wish to speak?" I stood slowly. "No, Your Honor," I said. "The evidence speaks for itself. I'm just here to support my daughter." The judge studied me for a moment. My old boots, my modest jacket, the quiet way I carried myself, and then turned back to Evan. "Mr. Brooks, blaming your father-in-law does not change the facts. The court has overwhelming proof of your misconduct, financial deception, and marital betrayal." Evan's face collapsed. Lauren didn't look at him, not once. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Knuckles white, but she didn't cry. She wasn't the same woman who had shaken in my arms days earlier. She was standing for herself now. The judge continued. Custody of the children is awarded to the petitioner, Mrs. Lauren Brooks. Mr. Brooks, you will receive supervised visitation until further review. Evan's eyes widened. Additionally, the judge said the marital home is awarded to Mrs. Brooks. Mr. Brooks is solely responsible for all debts incurred in his name or through fraudulent actions. Finally, child support will be set at the minimum guidelines based on Mr. Brooks's current employment status or lack thereof. A sharp tap of the gavel. Court is adjourned. The sound echoed. For a long moment, the room stayed frozen in silence. Evan slumped into his chair. His lawyer gathered papers without looking at him. The bailiff motioned for the room to clear. Lauren stood slowly. I stepped toward her, ready to catch her if her knees shook, but she didn't waver. She turned around, eyes glassy but steady, and reached for my hand. "Dad," she whispered, voice thick, "I'm going to rebuild my life." She squeezed my fingers. "I promise." Those two words, "I promise," held more strength than anything said in that courtroom. For the first time in years, I saw her as she once was, bright, brave, unbroken. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something loosen in my chest, not victory, not triumph. Relief. Deep, quiet, earned relief. 3 months passed quietly, the way seasons shift when you're not looking. Pennsylvania was settling into early spring, the air softening just enough for the river ice to crack and drift downstream. Life, it seemed, was thawing too. When I drove up to Lauren's house that Saturday morning, it felt different. Not just tidier, not just quieter, lighter. She opened the door with a smile that wasn't forced anymore, not stretched thin, not brittle. A real smile, one I hadn't seen in years. "Dad," she said, pulling me in for a hug. "Come in. The kids are in the backyard." I stepped inside. The place that once felt tense, air, heavy colors, muted, and now felt warm. Walls repainted. New curtains Lauren must have picked out herself. Photos of the kids smiling, not stiff smiles, but the kind they gave when joy came naturally again. Lily ran inside first, wearing new sneakers that actually fit. Carter followed with grass stains on his jeans. "Grandpa," they shouted in unison before tackling me around the waist. I laughed, really laughed, and lifted them both as high as my 60-year-old back allowed. Lauren watched from the doorway, eyes soft. "I got a new job," she said once the kids dashed back outside. "Junior consultant at Greenleaf Environmental." "Using your degree," I said, smiling. "Finally." She shrugged, a little shy. "I forgot what it felt like to be good at something." "You never stopped being good," I said. "You just weren't allowed to shine." A quiet moment settled between us, peaceful, not heavy. We talked about her work, about the kids' school projects, about how it felt to sleep without waiting for a door to slam or a voice to rise. She didn't ask about Evan. I didn't bring him up. Some wounds don't need reopening to prove their healing. Before I left, while she helped Carter with his jacket, I slipped a sealed envelope into the desk drawer in her hallway. A trust document. Signed, funded, untouchable. The Turner Educational Trust for Lily and Carter. College apprenticeships, whatever they dream. I didn't plan to tell her. I didn't need credit. Sometimes love works best when it stays quiet. That evening, back in my small riverfront apartment, I sat on the balcony with a mug of coffee cooling in my hands. The river reflected a strip of gold from the streetlights, rippling like a slow heartbeat. People think revenge is loud fire, shouting slammed doors. But real justice, the kind born from love, not bitterness, is gratuit. Still, human. I thought about Evan, his choice, his collapse, his consequences. And I wondered, not for the first time, did I go too far? I let the question sit with me. floating in the cold air. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. But I knew this. A father's instinct to protect can look like vengeance to someone who's never had to fight for family. Everything I'd done, every step, every reveal, every strategy had come from one truth. I wasn't saving Lauren from Evan. I was giving her back to herself. The river kept sliding past unbothered. Life kept moving. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "I'm proud to be your daughter." I let the words settle deep inside me, warming places that hadn't felt warm in a long time. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the water, the wind, the quiet. Then I smiled. Not the smile of a victor, not the smile of a man who'd won, but the smile of someone who had survived loss, carried weight, made impossible choices, and somehow found peace on the other side.